Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 630.
WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL. Happy Tuesday. Coming up 1 hour from now, Larry Gatlin will join us, country superstar.
Yeah, and a good guy.
It'll be fun to talk with him. We'll do that about an hour from now. Larry Kudlow on the show this morning at 8:36. Got Jake Tapper from ABC News about a half hour from now. We are pleased to be joined at the moment by the man, the myth, the legend, Jim Pethokoukis, who's a star on the rise.
I tell you what.
Who scooped them all the last couple of days and weeks when it comes to these debt negotiations, especially them falling apart last weekend. Good morning, Jim. How are you, Jimmy P? What's going on?
Just waiting for the next blockbuster event. The whole world is watching. The whole world is watching the net negotiations. Thrilling stuff here in July.
What I want to know is, did you eat your peas this morning?
Oh, I don't eat peas. I don't eat any of that stuff, and I'm unwilling. I want no shared sacrifice.
Right.
None
for me.
All right, you've got your ear to the ground. I mean, you really have done some good reporting on this, and I'm curious as to, do you think there is a possibility of still getting a deal done by August 2nd? Because it seems to me that the more they meet and the more press conferences we have, the further apart they are.
I do. I do think we're going to get a deal.
Okay.
By August 2nd. I don't think the Republican leaders want. Because remember, to me, the issue really on August 2nd, even though we keep talking default, it's really government shutdown, because more than enough money coming in to cover debt payments. We're not going to default, but there might be a huge government shutdown, which I don't think. Certainly, some of the Tea Party might like it. The Republican leaders, I think, do not want a government shutdown. So I think there is going to be a deal, a smaller deal, more than the $2.4 trillion range. Listen, if the president wanted a mega deal, he should have been negotiating since December when his own debt commission had a $4 trillion debt reduction.
I believe I was screaming about that this morning.
Yes.
Oh, right. Well, good. Somebody should scream about it, because he blew off his commission. Then in February he gave a debt plan that would have added $10 trillion in new debt, and then he had this phony baloney budget speech in April. Now he wants a big debt package.
You know, you hit upon something that I think is largely not being discussed, because, I mean, everybody is, talking about gloom and doom here. We're going to default, we're going to default, we're going to default. We're not going to default.
Listen, if you look at the bond market, they could care less, but they're focused on what's going on in Europe. Not default here. And again, Goldman Sachs, the supposed smartest guys in the room, very close ties to the administration,
right,
all this kind of stuff. They just put out a note last night saying they thought default was extremely unlikely for exactly the reason that I've been saying, and a lot of folks have been saying. There's more than enough money coming in.
So what will happen, and you're correct, is that we'll take some of the money that comes in and we'll pay off the debt, the debt payment that we have, and then we'll be forced, oh my gosh, what a horrible thing this would be, to trim our spending.
Listen, we have enough money for the debt. We actually have enough money for Social Security, Medicare, and pay the troops. And then we can focus on all the other stuff. So what the administration should be doing is creating a plan for what bills can we not afford to pay from the rest of the budget. Not be scaring people with this debt payment stuff.
Well, and where does this deal come from? I mean, somebody's got to move. The president has put a line in the sand, and I know when he does that, he's very serious about it, and he'll never go back on it. But is he the one who moves, or does Boehner say, okay, you can have 2 tax loopholes or whatever it is?
I was talking to someone I think has a very good feel, shall we say, for what they're thinking in the White House. And I think what you're going to end up getting is the smaller debt deal, no tax increases. I think the cuts are going to be the spending cuts will be a little bit dodgy. Maybe the president gets a little bit of his payroll tax cut, maybe paired with the repatriation of foreign earnings, which would probably be good for growth. But I think the bottom line is no default. Smaller package, and I don't think we're going to see any tax increases.
But some kind of deal made before August 2nd as well.
Yeah, I think by late July, yeah.
Okay, there's been some speculation that, hey, John Boehner isn't really running the show for Republicans in the House, that really Eric Cantor's the guy who's, the man behind the curtain. Is there any truth to that from the reporting that you've been doing?
Well, listen, at the meeting they just had, it was certainly Eric Cantor running the show. I certainly would not diminish the continued role, power, and influence of John Boehner, but certainly Eric Cantor's taken a more active role here now versus last weekend, where it was really Team Boehner doing the negotiating.
You brought up Goldman Sachs, and I find that interesting. What surprises me is that Wall Street has been rather quiet in all of this. I mean, they haven't reacted to it. You haven't heard a lot of people on TV, on CNBC or Fox Business, saying, hey, this has got to be done, or else there's going to be, major blood on the street, or they haven't been really pushing Republicans and Democrats to get a deal done. They've been quiet. Am I right about that? And why have they been quiet, if I am right? They have been quiet, and not just, I think, in their public statements, but in what you actually see going on in the markets. Again, I think they're a lot more focused on with sort of what could be, again, an emerging horrific debt situation in Europe, because it's not as if you have Republicans saying, let's default. No, they're saying no default, and here's why we don't think of default. I think Wall Street more or less accepts that reasoning, and they might be concerned about a government shutdown because they're worried that if the U.S. isn't paying its bills, that's going to suck money out of the economy, and that'll slow the economy because that's how they look at the world. But as far as the big default issue, I don't think they're concerned. Remember, there also some talk about us, losing our AAA rating. These same credit rating agencies, which completely missed the entire financial crisis. Right.
One, I don't know how much focused I'm going to be on that. And two, Japan, which also has extremely low interest rates, they lost their credit rating a while ago.
Jimmy, if the spending cuts are dodgy now in this very, very serious situation, do you have any faith that we actually get to solve the problem at some point? I'm a little sketched out by this.
Well, as long as at some point is not in the summer of 2011, I have some confidence. But listen, I could find you for close to $2 trillion in cuts, which would be completely fictitious and phony.
Right.
All right. So I think just as we need to take a very hard look at this, just like at first people didn't take a very hard look at that at the 2011 budget agreement, where the spending cuts didn't look quite so impressive in the light of day. I think people need to take a very hard look at what they eventually come up with.
All right, Jimmy P., we appreciate you joining us here on the Morning Majority.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh.